Hello, and welcome to this edition of Safe and Secure. While the Southfield Fire Department's been busy looking for new recruits, the Southfield Police Department has been busy promoting among its ranks. The department is excited to announce new promotions to deputy chiefs and lieutenant. A recent ceremony was held on September 23rd.
Well, first off, I'd like to say good morning to everyone. Good morning to everyone. My name is Shandera Dawson. I'm the assistant to Chief Elvin Barron, and I'd like to welcome all of the honorees and their families here this morning. So thank you for coming very much. We appreciate your presence here this morning for such a joyous and good occasion.
Chief Barron took the opportunity to express his commitment to the Code of Ethics for the police. It was read by new cadet Alexandria Sanani.
So thank you all for being here. A very exciting day. Promotions of the ranks of deputy chief and lieutenant. When we take this job to become police officers, we're instilled with the Code of Ethics. We will now hear the Code of Ethics from our cadet, Anani.
Good morning, everyone. Okay. As a law enforcement officer, my fundamental duty is to serve the community, to safeguard lives and property, to protect the innocent against deception, the weak against oppression or intimidation, and the peaceful against violence or disorder, and to respect the constitutional rights of all to liberty, equality, and justice. I will keep my private life unstilled as an example to all and will behave in a manner that does not bring discredit to me or my agency. I will maintain courageous and calm in the face of danger, scorn or ridicule, develop self-restraint, and be constantly mindful of the welfare of others. Honest in thought and deed in both my personal and official life, I will be exemplary in obeying the law and the regulations of my department. Whatever I see or hear of confidential nature or that is confided to me in my official capacity will be kept every secret unless revelation is necessary in the performance of my duty. I will never act officiously or permit personal feelings, prejudices, political beliefs, aspiration, animosities, or friendships to influence my decisions. With no compromise for crime and with relentless prosecution of criminals, I will enforce the law courteously and appropriately without fear or favor, malice or ill will, never employing unnecessary force or violence, and never accepting gratitudes. I recognize the badge of my office as a symbol of public faith, and I accept it as a public trust to be held so long that I am true to the ethics of police service. I will never engage in acts of corruption or bribery, nor will I condone such acts by other police officers. I will cooperate with all legal authorized agencies and their representatives in the pursuit of justice. I know that I alone am responsible for my own standard of professional performances and will take every responsible opportunity to enhance and improve my level of knowledge and competence. I will constantly strive to achieve these objectives and ideals, dedicating myself before God to my chosen profession, law enforcement.
And thank you for providing the Code of Ethics. And the reason the Code of Ethics is important, we're assuming, again, promotional ceremony, rising to the ranks of lieutenant, deputy chief, and even for the police officers in attendance, never forget that code, particularly in this environment. The Code of Ethics is instrumental in accountability and also community relationships. So thank you.
Mayor Siver was among the public officials who spoke, as well as Councilman Dan Brightwell.
I want to start by saying something to Nick. This is a bittersweet moment for me. I've worked with Deputy Chief Lucia for years. Have a very positive working relationship with him, both as a superb professional in the law enforcement field and also on a personal level. So Nick, We'll miss you. We thank you for your service. You've been a tremendous asset to the Southfield Police Department. And to the officers who are being promoted today, these are all names I know. You've been around a while. Matthew, I believe I spoke at your swearing in ceremony. It's good to see you promoted to lieutenant. Jeff, I know you've been doing the acting job, and I knew this day was coming, so congratulations once again to you. And Officer Langowitz, now Deputy Chief, congratulations to you. May you all have fulfilling careers and continue to serve us in an excellent capacity. Thank you very much.
City Administrator Zorn addressed the officers and acknowledged their families and the great work Southfield first responders do.
It's refreshing to hear the law enforcement code of ethics, very powerful words that I think all of us need to remind ourselves, what we're about and what we do on a daily basis. I look around the room, and the three officers have their families and loved ones. You've sacrificed to make this happen. I want you to remember today as a good day. There will be days when I'm sure you'll say, why did I choose this profession? But it is important to be looking out for the welfare of others, to take care of others, an incredibly amount of responsibility. Look at the young people in this room, and it's always about the next generation, about what we're doing and what we can do to make this world a little bit better. We know there's lots of challenges. We're dealing with an awful lot with this pandemic, the economic crisis that may follow or may not follow. I think we all need to just keep working together. I'd like to remind Southfield we're the 70,000 plus people. Under normal circumstances, another 100,000 people come here. The police department is one of our foremost products, keeping the community safe and protected. Our police, our fire, our EMS services are top rate. Few communities compete with what we do. We're often asked to be a training ground for other departments. Most recently, we've implemented body cameras and a lot of other changes in the department. I'm very proud of the leadership team, to Chief Barron and to Nick, to Dan Rustum, and the rest of the team that made that happen, to the officers who embraced that change. The world's changing. A lot of us are watching the defund me movement and recent actions in Lansing and just scratching our heads trying to figure out, the system doesn't work unless we keep it safe and secure. You're our first line of defense. I'm personally grateful for that. I want to just comment a little bit about the city of Southfield. We are a community that's 60 plus years old. We've been in a rebuilding mode for the last, since pretty much 2014, rebuilding all of our infrastructure. Over 130 million in new roads, new water and sewer lines are being done. Our residential values are coming back. Our commercial values and occupancy are strong. All of that's because of what you folks do every day. You can't sell a product unless it's safe and secure. Our library and our rec department and our public works offer top services. Our rec and library are superior products in cultural opportunities in the programming. Again, that has changed very dramatically in light of the COVID pandemic. I think we need to keep our focus, continue to believe that we can make things better, and I thank all of you for what you do every day. I read the reports every morning, and their names I recognize. While I don't know you personally, I want you to know how much I appreciate your sacrifice and your concern and passion for what you do. To Nick, you were one of the first police officers I met when I came here 12 years ago. you did my investigation. I remember bringing in legal boxes, and I've enjoyed working with you and the leadership you've provided to this group. Thank you. And congratulations to you and your families. This is an important day. To the children in the audience, remember what your dads have done, and this is a big deal, and you should be very proud of what your dad has accomplished. Congratulations, officers.
Police officers realize just how important a supportive family can be.
So I always like to start off any ceremony with recognizing the families. So everybody, please give the families a round of applause. You know, your support is the reason why they each sit here. What better way to return home than with a supportive family? A family that will listen to the concerns of your loved ones, listen to some of the frustrations, and then you assist them by giving them the encouragement over these years to return to work, put on the uniform, put on that badge, and serve the city of Southfield and honorably serve this policing profession. So again, thank you to the families.
Failure in leadership is something Chief Barron is trying to avoid, and he feels confident that the processes and policies in place can work with leaders holding officers accountable for their behavior.
Leadership is something that I've been beating the drum on since I arrived a little bit over a year ago today. Leadership is fundamental in policing, and so that's why it's very important at the ranks of deputy chief, lieutenant, that we continue to be courageous in our leadership. We continue to inspect what we expect, and I'm confident the fact that we have a premier leadership team. They're excited about these promotions.
Deputy Chief Nick Lucia will be retiring in the near future. He has been with the Southfield Police Department for over 29 years. Chief Barron acknowledges Nick's help when he first got the job as Southfield's police chief.
I want to acknowledge this man right here, certainly Deputy Chief Lucia, and the reason he keeps coming up is just because he's on his last few months with this agency. He served this agency for 29 years of honorable and dedicated service. And so, again, I want to thank you for your leadership. We wish you well on your retirement. I'm not sure whether or not this will be the last time you see Chief Lucia. We have one more promotion tentatively scheduled for the either late November or early December, and his last day with us will be December 7th. So he may or may not be here, but just in case, thank you, sir. And please give this man a round of applause.
Chief Barron impressed upon the new deputy chiefs and lieutenant to realize how important community relations and interactions are to the success of the police department.
So let's talk about community. No police department will be successful without proper community relationships, proper community interactions. And that's what the expectation from this police chief to these deputy chiefs and to the lieutenant. That you embrace this community, you get to know the community, they know who you are. These roles of leadership are not just 8 hours a day, you punch a clock, you go home. Particularly for my deputy chiefs. You move into an era of national best practices enforcement, where it's an expectation of the leadership, and this is senior management, to be accountable to the community. And so I'm confident that will take place. With that being said, the community expects us to have patience, that we listen, and we address their concerns as it relates to complaints, whether we need to hold members accountable or explain our actions. I'm going to start off by addressing Lieutenant Matthew Taylor. From the moment I've got here, I've always been very impressed with your leadership. Any assignment that I've given you was not only taken care of with a sense of urgency, it was taken care of with thought. And that's what we need from the leadership team. Everyone looking at how we can move projects forward and implement projects for the safety of the officers. So thank you for your leadership. Give them in a round of applause. Deputy Chiefs, and I'll start with Deputy Chief Jeff Jagelski. Certainly, and the reason I'm smiling, we've really had a good relationship, particularly over the last 3 or 4 months, where he served as an interim deputy chief over patrol. So I asked him to make a transition. He spent the lion's share of his lieutenant's position managing, organizing in the investigations division. But I asked him to step outside his comfort zone and lead, and I'm going to say that word again, lead the patrol division under an interim calling. And he did that. And so these are things you need to know as a family, that you have a valuable member of this organization. I'm very excited to be returning him back to the investigations division because I think his leadership will be best as he replaces Deputy Chief Nick Lucia. So again, thank you. Very excited for this day. Deputy Chief Jeff Jagelski. Deputy Chief Thomas Lankowitz, another exciting time for me to have another deputy chief on my side. And when we reflect on his career in policing, you're looking at 34 years or so of dedicated service. What does that do for the Southfield Police Department and for the police chief? Well, in that 34 years, this man served 10 years with the Detroit Police Department. So we have a connection already. He's very proud of his son, certainly one who's followed in his footsteps. I remember going to a briefing after the results were announced, and I told his son, your dad is #1. And so you should have seen the smile that came across his face to know that his dad was soon to be a deputy chief. And so as I come off script a little bit, I'm going to talk to the son for a few seconds. Continue to model your career after your father. 34 years in this business is not easy. 34 years in this business raising a family, not easy. And so you hold the Lankowitz legacy in your hand, not only because you joined this profession, but you also, like me, were named after my father, a junior. So what you do could either make this man proud or cause some embarrassment. And so just be mindful of that. You were one of the ones that I spoke to early in my tenure, because as I always say, the police chief here always pays attention to what's going on, particularly when we have complaints. And so if I share a little story as I continue to be off script for a minute with Junior, I got a complaint that he approached a citizen in the traffic stop, and the complaint was very well written, 5 paragraphs. It leaned to the fact that he was unprofessional. So I responded to the citizen as I always do. Well, ma'am, this should be captured on video. I'm going to take a look at it, and then I'm going to call you back. Well, I looked at the video. It was the opposite of everything in these 5 paragraphs that she articulated. In fact, this was probably one of the most professional traffic stops that I had ever seen in my life. And so I called her back, as I always keep my promises, because many of you know, especially Meredith knows, I'm a promise keeper. I called that citizen back. I said, well, ma'am, I'm sitting in front of my computer. As a matter of fact, please come join me and sit with me. And I could push the play button, and I would like for you to identify the things that you articulated in your email because they did not happen. And she hung up on me. And so, and that's the reason why the body cameras are so important. I know some folks had some issues with body cameras. Some folks aren't necessarily happy, but the body cameras are the best thing for you. And so it helped me shape my mindset for who you were under the direction of your father of professionalism. But getting back to your father, I certainly want to recognize the fact that although you recently retired from the CERT team, the CERT team, for those in the audience who may not recognize that term, the SWAT team, where he was an instrumental leader in our CERT team, SWAT team. But what I'm encouraged by is the fact that now that you have assumed the deputy chief role, that leadership, that professionalism, when we respond to these scenes, because deputy chiefs, although he may not necessarily be on the team, he still has a duty to give direction. His experience will be able to balance out as we always huddle up when we do critical incident response with the existing deputy chief and have these conversations with myself and make sure we're doing things with patience and national best practices in policing. And so I want to thank you for your leadership. Another thing I want to thank you for, many of you don't know this, and you may not know this. After the murder of Mr. George Floyd, race and policing became a serious topic. Uncomfortable topic. We talk about race and policing. It makes many people uncomfortable. Doesn't make me uncomfortable because I'm honest about race and policing in this profession. And when I had a conversation with Deputy Chief Lankowitz, he had an honest conversation with me about it. And so I was very encouraged to know that a soon-to-be deputy chief understands the importance of accountability, understands the importance of race relations, and how we as a country need to do better in this regards. So again, thank you for your leadership. This family certainly be very proud of this moment. I know I am. And I can see somewhat of a smile in the eyes, and I know you are. So congratulations.
City Clerk Sharika Hawkins administered the oath to the officers, and they gave a few brief remarks.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and the Charter of the City of Southfield, and I will faithfully discharge the position of Deputy Chief at the Southfield Police Department according to the best of my ability. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Here, over here.
In my nearly 34 years in this noble profession, I've had the opportunity to work with some of the most heroic, self-sacrificing men and women of this profession. The year 2020 has been very challenging, and I look forward to guiding and directing the next generation of Southfield police officers. And lastly, I'd like to thank my family. My wife has sacrificed more than anybody in the past 34 years, and I love you. Thank you.
It's no secret that policing is changing. The world is changing, as Mr. Zorn alluded to. So too is our department. Over half of our department has less than 5 years of service under their belt. That's a young department. But 100% of our officers are great. 100% of our officers are exceptional. With that, good gets better, great gets greater. I'm excited and honored at the opportunity to lead this department, to make sure that great gets greater and that good gets better. My family, thank you for your support over the past 20 some odd years. I'd like to acknowledge my father, retired police officer, 25 years with the Detroit Police Department, 15 years with the Oakland County Sheriff's Department. My mom, she supported, obviously, my dad throughout, myself throughout, and our entire family. My son, my daughter, my mother-in-law. Thank you for your support. I look forward to leading this department and for better things to come. Thank you.
In closing, Chief Barron talked about the changes in police policy and best practices, and he is encouraged by the changes the police department has been making.
So in this year, we've revised our use of force policy, where we now have the duty to intervene, which this police department started a national campaign for all police departments to adapt this policy. In fact, this police department was recognized by the governor for the duty to intervene policy and being the first to declare it. We banned illegal chokeholds, and we made it so that if a police officer needed to do any type of neck restraints, it had to be under a life or death situation. And so we're moving towards these national best practices. In fact, we'll be meeting next week because there is a national best practice called 8 Can't Wait. And right now we're in compliance with 6 of the items. We'll be in full compliance next week after we continue to walk through the language for the final 2 objectives. But again, national best practices in use of force, this police department. We've increased our school resource officers. We've increased our community relationship division. We partnered with many different organizations and put on book bag giveaways, food giveaways, partner with 401 Therapy and some of our other partners. We did our first annual trunk or treat last year, and certainly the pandemic is going to have us make an adjustment to that. We got an idea. We're not going to let the kids go without the Halloween, without having something. So we're working with Parks and Rec to get something for the kids, but it won't be that same platform because we can't do it inside of the pavilion this year. I always like to close with a leadership quote. And I want this new leadership team to listen. I want the sergeants and even the police officers to listen. It's a quote by Douglas MacArthur. A true leader has the confidence to stand alone, the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the needs of others. He or she does not set out to be a leader, but becomes one by the quality and the equity of his or her actions and the integrity in his or her intents. So remember that. Leadership is a foundation for this police department. Leadership is a foundation for this country. Thank you.
Well, that's it for this edition of Safe and Secure. For more information, you can go to the City of Southfield's website or check out our department's pages. You can also check out our Facebook and our YouTube channels. For everyone here at the City of Southfield, please stay safe and secure.